Hey there everybody, Jandor here, bringing you another episode of Learnin the Ropes. This time we are going to talk about Zeus, the one and only Zeus, thunder god, god of thunder, and all that good jazz. Alright, so Zeus is a hero that I enjoy playing. He's not the easiest hero in the world some days, but he can be very effective. He is a ranged, and then they have him as a nuker and a support. You can theoretically play Zeus as a support. He's good at harassing. He's got that, ganking nuke damage and all that sort of stuff. I mean, he's certainly not going to carry the game in a long game. So you don't want... You could potentially build him as a carry, like you can build any hero as a carry with enough snowball, but he's not going to out-carry a real carry, right? And one of the things to remember about him as a support, he does not have any disables, and we're going to talk about his skills. This is the new format I'm doing for these Learning the Ropes, by the way. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. So, since he doesn't have any disables, it's hard for him to set up kills. The best he can do is kind of use Lightning Bolt for True Sight, which can actually be pretty effective in the right circumstances. But ultimately, what I like to use him for is, and I think what most people do, is you put him mid. And you get him to level 6, and then you kind of roam around and gank and come to team fights and contribute a pretty sizable amount of damage and start bringing the teams down that way, as opposed to a more traditional support. He also benefits from having some farm, which is why you want to play him in like a 4 or 3 spot with regards to farm priority. Maybe a 2, certainly not a 5 though. You don't want him buying support items. You want him buying stuff that's going to help him run around the map and be viable, like a bottle and so on and so forth. So, his skills: he has Arc Lightning, Lightning Bolt, Static Field, and Thunder God's Wrath. We will go over each of them in turn. He has pretty solid int gain, 2.70, not the highest by any stretch of the imagination, but it's okay. His strength gain is also pretty good for a character at 2.3. His agility gain is terrible. It's terrible. So he has low armor, low attack speed. His animation is a bit tricky. And so you're going to want to be careful early game and just throughout the game. He can get blown up pretty easily. Alright, first ability is Arc Lightning. This is his Q, if you're playing with the standard keyboard layout. Arc Lightning throws lightning that jumps through enemies. It starts at 5 jumps and it goes up to 15, which is pretty awesome. And it starts at 85 damage and goes to 145 to each person hit. So this actually is pretty effective. It also has a really, really short cooldown of 1.75 seconds and scaling mana cost of 65 to 80. The cooldown is so short, you can use this to last hit. The one thing to remember when you're doing it, because you'll see me do this in the game, is that if you're last hitting with Arc Lightning, you are burning mana, which means you won't have mana available for your other abilities. So you have to be careful. Zeus eats through mana like, God, almost no other hero I know of. He just is constantly burning through mana. It's crazy. So you want to get items that can support that. But let's take a look at what the Arc Lightning does. As you can see, you zap a creep, it zaps to all the other creeps around you. One of the things that's really cool about Arc Lightning is you can harass people in the fog. So if you're playing mid, for example, and the enemy hero is running up onto high ground and you're in the river, you can drop an Arc Lightning, and if there's enough creeps around, it'll jump and hit the hero, dealing some damage and also proccing your static field, which we'll get to later. Pardon me. His other ability, his W is Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt summons a bolt of lightning to strike an enemy unit, as it says in the description. What makes Lightning Bolt pretty cool is it is a pretty solid nuke. It deals a decent amount of damage, starts at 100, scales to 350, which is pretty good scaling. You get a lot of damage out of it every level, especially when you go from level 2 to 3. It's like 100 damage, and then it's 75 damage per increase otherwise. Its cooldown is 6 seconds, which means you might be able to get it off more than once in a fight, which is pretty nice. Its mana cost goes from 75 to 135, which is not insane, but it still takes some mana to cast this. And the thing that's really cool about it is it also gives True Sight and a mini stun. So when you hit the person, kind of like Lucent Beam, they get stunned, which means you can stun people out of channeled effects, for example. And it also gives True Sight in a radius of 900, which means if you have enemies that are going to go invisible or are invisible nearby the enemy that you target, they will be revealed, which is pretty nice. You can actually use this to provide vision on foes who are trying to escape your team. Let's take a look at what it looks like, because it's pretty sweet. Man, poor Sven. He's just sort of everybody's whipping boy in these videos, isn't he? Static Field is Zeus's passive. What happens with this is It's got a pretty solid range of 1,000, and every time he casts a spell, he deals damage to enemies. This is health reduction, so I think this goes through things like BKB, and it goes through armor. I don't know if it goes through BKB because it's magical damage, but I think it should go through armor pretty well. What it does is it reduces health. So it's a proportion to their current health, which means I don't think you can kill anybody with it. But it does, if you can proc this with a couple of arc lightnings and then follow up with a lightning bolt, like you can deal just a pretty insane amount of damage to people. And it's really good in fights. Take a look. So as you see, he drops a lightning bolt and the Sven here takes damage once again. Boom. He takes some damage proportionate to his health. It scales from 5% to 11%, so this is really good to get up early because generally when I skill build Zeus, I put 1 in Q, 1 in the Arc Lightning, because it's good for last hitting and harassing in a lane, and it's cheap and has a ridiculously short cooldown. And then you're going to max Lightning Bolt and Static Field in that order. With Thunder God's Wrath, obviously, you're going to be maxing your which we're going to talk about right now. You're going to want to max your ultimate. For sure, and then go back and finish out Arc Lightning. Thunder God's Wrath is why everybody hates Zeus in pubs. It's global, and it basically does a bolt of lightning to every enemy on the map, regardless of where they are. You don't need vision, and it creates true sight at that location. However, as you can see, if the enemy is currently invisible, it doesn't take any damage. Something to be aware of if you're using it against a Ricky or something, but it can be used as scout. Although really what it's good for is just cleaning up fights or starting off a fight. You can not initiate with this, but you can kind of start a fight with this because it's a huge nuke to the entire team, and it doesn't matter where they're positioned or how they're positioned. They're all going to take the damage unless they started the fight invisible. It's also upgradable by Scepter. Cooldown is a flat 90 seconds, which is pretty reasonable. Mana cost goes from 225 to 450, so this is pretty expensive. And it's got a true sight radius of 900. The duration is 3 seconds for the true sight, blah, blah, blah. But what it does, it starts at 225 damage and goes to 475. 475 damage to everybody on the map is pretty ridiculous, and if you have an Aghanim Scepter, it's even crazier. It starts at 440 and scales to 640. This is one of the reasons that Aghanims is pretty popular on a Zeus. It really makes Thunder God's Wrath pretty terrifying. But, as I'll talk about a bit when we watch the video of my game, I don't like rushing Aghanims. I used to do that on Zeus, but unless you're going to get it pretty early, I think there are better things to go first. But it's definitely a really good item to get. Let's take a look at what it does. Kaboom! It also looks badass, and it sounds awesome. So, yeah, that's Zeus. That's his kit. That's his set of skills. And we're going to watch a quick game here of me playing the Zeus that I played just the other day to give you guys a sense of what he looks like in game. Let's go ahead and watch away. Boom. So, this game, obviously, I go Zeus and I go mid. Like I said, I've seen Zeus's played in the lane before, and they can be pretty good at harassing the lane, but I prefer them mid because you want to get to level 6 pretty fast, and you want to get some decent farm and get some regen items and other things up. And you can do that more easily in the mid lane. You're also less likely to die. Like, you can't offlane with him because he doesn't have any good escape mechanisms. One of the things that's tricky about Zeus, his animation is tough. Like, he's not easy to last hit with. And like I said, if you're using your Arc Lightning to last hits, you are going to be running out of mana pretty quickly, so you got to be careful. He also is kind of frail. He's not super frail. As you saw, his strength gain is pretty good, but he's not the tankiest hero in the world because his agility is pretty low, so you want to be kind of careful. Let's go ahead and skip ahead. And we're going to finish out the picks. And here we go. So let's go ahead and take a look at player perspective on the Zeus. So I am Dire side. Let's keep up our KDAs. Actually, let's look at the last hits and denies to start the game out. So, I'm starting mid. I'm always toying with my starting items. As a Zeus, you can be greedy and really go for a fast bottle
30 seconds
and only get some basic regen, like maybe a salve and some tangos. I tend to like to get clarities because, like I said, I use Arc Lightning to last hit, and so you want to have clarities on hand to get your mana back up. And then I went with 3 Ironwood Branch and a Tango. Tango is to keep my health up, and the 3 Ironwood branches are to give me a bigger mana pool, a little bit more attack speed, and more importantly to give me some extra health. Which is actually a pretty solid amount considering what I started with. So I'm at 568 health right now. It's a decent, and it still leaves me 250 gold, so I'm still somewhat close to a bottle. If you're really good, you might be able to get that on your first wave, probably early into the second wave, or maybe towards the end of the second wave, beginning of the third wave, if you're like me, and not the best at last hitting. I love how Zeus looks. He looks totally awesome, by the way. Look at that guy. I love it. Let's see. I'm up against a Storm Spirit. This is not going to be the world's easiest lane. Storm Spirit is pretty good. He gets really scary. He's evasive. He can deal a lot of right-click damage. He can gank you pretty effectively, especially if he gets things like an Orchid. Like, there's not much you're going to be able to do to escape him if he goes on you. So you should play a little bit cautious. I probably don't play as cautious as I should have done in this game. But there you have it. I'm all, still learning. That's why it's called Learnin the Ropes. So as you can see, my starting progression with skills, I started with Arc Lightning to use for last hits. I'm trying to not use it as much as possible and focus on using my right click. But then sometimes, you just boom, you go ahead and grab stuff from farther away. It's got a better range than your attack animation does as well. Then I pick up Lightning Bolt. Then I'm going to go Static Field and then max out Lightning Bolt, or something along those lines. And as you can see, I mean, it's even low levels, it's still a pretty reasonable amount of damage, and it's got him down to half health just by spamming it a little bit. So this is really good. It's a pretty effective lane harass if you can keep your mana up. And one of the things that's always frustrating is, like, I'm always like a teeny sliver of health away from getting multiple last hits with it too. I don't know what it is. It just feels like I'm always just a little bit too early with it to get more than one last hit. I popped my clarity at a bad time there. I should have waited until the creep wave had come in to engage the range creep so that he wouldn't range hit me, because I basically just lost 50 gold and all that regen time. That was kind of a mistake, but all things are considered, things are going okay. I'm regenning up, and as you can see, I'm already down to like 98, mana. Like, you just drain it real fast when you're last hitting like that. You've got a starting mana pool. It's not too bad with the branches. I'm up to 364 starting out, or a little bit less than that starting out, obviously, as I'm leveling up, because I'm already level 4. But you want to be kind of conservative, because you'll run through it like I did pretty fast. Now, this was not the world's fastest bottle either. Like I said, I'm not last hitting really effectively, but I've got a bottle on the way. Bottle is really good on Zeus, because it gives you both health and necessary mana regen, and since you're typically playing mid, if you can control the runes, it gives you some extra oomph there. If you can't control the runes, well, you can bottle Crow. I'm debating doing a video on what that actually means and how to do it, so if you guys have any insight on whether or not you would like to see that, go ahead and let me know in the comments. Otherwise, we'll see what I get done. But it was one of those things that it was something that I never really understood how to do and kind of had to figure out, but I feel like it's really useful, especially in the mid lane. Well, really only in the mid lane, so it's good to kind of understand. I think you might see me do a little bit of it here this game, but I've gone ahead and grabbed my bottle, and they're going to pause because their Juggernaut ran away, so we're going to go ahead, not ran away, their Juggernaut disconnected, so we're going to speed this up, wait for Jug to come back. I'm checking in on my other lanes as we do so and getting a sense of where I want to build. Typically what I do is after bottle, I go either into boots or a wand. Wand is pretty good, just like almost anybody. It gives you some burst early game. It gives you a good amount of burst regen for mana and health. And it gives you a little bit of the stats and things like that without taking up a major item slot. So that's a good thing to get. I also wanted, then I'm going to go Arcane Boots. Arcane Boots is a core item on Zeus, as you guys can see. Let's go ahead and clear that out of the way. It won't let me go into the shop. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and go free camera. We'll zoom this back. As you guys can see, Arcane Boots is one of his core items, and it also tells you to go Veil of Discord. Veil of Discord is pretty good. It's pretty good, but I think there are definitely better items. I almost never go Veil on a Zeus. And yeah, but the Arcane Boots are great because what it does is it gives you movement speed, obviously, but also gives you 250 mana, and your mana pool really wants some added oomph. Like, you want to have some more mana in your mana pool because you're going to be spamming these abilities and you'll run out really fast. Plus, you can give yourself back mana, you can give all your allies back mana. It's a nice item on a Zeus. So I typically go the arcane boots after a wand, bottle, etc. From there, what I think I did this game, and one of the things I'm trying to do more regularly with Zeus is I went Force Staff. Now the reason you'll see me going Force Staff is because I know it's a little bit passive right now, not a lot of kills going on. We're just sort of farming up. The reason I go Force Staff is because it gives you an escape or an initiating mechanism, so you can force yourself towards opponents or away from opponents. You can force your allies back and forth. You can force opponents back and forth. It gives you some pretty solid utility, as well as giving you a bunch of intelligence and some health regen, which is nice because it helps out, you know, your laning presence as well as your mana pool, which sorely needs some assistance. So here we go. Still last hitting, doing okay in lane. As you can see, our Slark is leading in last hits, and I am out last hitting the Storm Spirit by a little bit. I've also got a couple more denies than he does, but nothing super commanding in terms of a lead. Their Juggernaut disconnected for a while here. We waited for a bit. I mean, somebody, you know, paused, and you go back and forth every once in a while with that, and then he reconnected. Yay! So their Juggernaut is back. I mean, it's one of those things, it's always tough when that happens in a game because it really can delay things and make things really difficult for the enemy team. So take this game with a grain of salt. Their Juggernaut was out for a decent amount, but I think we still played pretty effectively, all things considered. Right now, I am going to go ahead and try and bottle crow. So what you can do is if you drop your bottle on the ground, you can have the courier pick it up, and then you can shift command the courier to go back to base. And then if he goes back to base, you can send him back to you, and you'll have a full bottle again. With a flying courier especially, this is pretty fast, and it gives you some much-needed regen to allow you to continue harassing the middle lane. And here we're going to go ahead and get boots. And the other cool thing is that you can also you can sort of double it up so that you're shipping items out to yourself as well as your newly filled bottle. If you can't control the runes, this is a great way to continue getting your regen up. And I think I dropped down my Tango so that I would have space for them to drop off all this stuff, make the wand. I wasn't sure if I could afford it, blah, 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 blah. Storm Spirit's already going, so he's going to get this rune. I was a little late there. He's going to go ahead and give himself a double damage. So I'm like, well, he got that. I better run back to lane. If you see someone if you're playing mid and you see someone who's as fast or faster than you already heading towards a rune direction, you basically have to give it up. Or wait to see if they if they come back. And if you check their inventory and they don't have a rune, then that means you should immediately start running towards the bottom lane. If no one's, or towards the other lane. Like if no one's helping you control runes, you don't have vision. If by running away or by not following the guy that's going to get the rune instead of you, you're able to sap more experience from the lane, and you have a better chance of last hitting because you're not getting harassed. So if you know the other guy's going to get it, just have the courier come back, put the bottle back on it after you've bottled up, and keep last hitting in lane, getting experience, or potentially getting ready to roam and gank. So I'm level 7 by now. I should be able to make plays happen, but I am seriously out of mana because I've been last hitting with my Q a little bit too much, which means I'm not going to be able to drop Thunder God's Wrath. One of the things you can do as a Zeus, this is a good hero to really be cognizant with your camera of what's going on around the map, and having your allies who will help you out with pings and other things when people are low. If an enemy hero is super low, within a few hundred health, and here we go. Storm Spirit jumps in on me. He's got a double damage rune. I don't know why he didn't kill me there. He had Electric Vortex too. He almost certainly could have killed me there, but maybe he didn't have enough mana. I think he must have been low. No, he still had some mana. Yeah, go figure. I guess he just wanted to harass me back. If he had jumped on me and then vortexed me in with the lasso and then gone ahead and dropped another remnant or something, like, he definitely would have gotten that kill. And that's one of the things where, that's why it's tough to lane against the Storm Spirit. Once they hit level 6, they can just be on top of you, and then you're a Zeus. You're like, oh, I'd have no way of escaping this, and then you die. Good to be careful. As I was saying about Thunder God's Wrath, though, like you said, or like I said when I was describing the skill, it starts off dealing 225 damage to everything on the map. So if you are looking around the map and there's a fight happening in a lane, or some people have just killed some of your heroes or something like that, if you check and see that they're low, you can either get a kill, which is obviously ideal by dropping your ult, or even if you just have to force them back to base, sometimes that can be enough to take some pressure off and create space for the team. But you don't want to just trigger it willy-nilly. Like, it's not the same as a Nature's Prophet ulti where if you spam it, you can push the lanes out because it'll hurt the creeps as well as the enemy heroes that are nearby the lanes. This only hurts heroes. So if you just sort of, and if I had been a little closer or I had a little more mana, I might have been able to kill the Storm Spirit there. This is why it's important to be more conservative with your mana. Like, you can light people up. That static field proc really makes a big difference. Right now I'm sending the courier to pick up my bottle and then bring it back to me. And we're going to go ahead and continue the last hit. I'm probably being a little bit too passive right now. I should probably be moving around and trying to gank or do other stuff or going back to the base and getting a TP scroll. But I'm trying to get my arcane boots. So we'll see. Once those are online, I definitely should start moving out. It's one of the things that in most games, you know, if you're sitting back and being passive, that's not necessarily a bad thing as long as the enemies are doing something similar. But if okay, and for some reason somebody must have taken it, or I didn't let it get back to base. I'm not 100% sure why that just happened. I'm also not the fastest with bottle crowing, so you see me like kind of faffing around there for a while. But I'm going to send the courier over to the secret shop to pick up my mana booster for arcane boots, and then it'll go back to base and then come back to me with a full bottle and my arcane boots. So if the game is kind of going passive and everybody's farming, feel free to kind of farm up, but you also as a Zeus can roam around and really make people's lives miserable because you can deal a ton of burst damage. If you get some mobility items and are able to kind of move around and gank lanes, you can do that. Now you want to do it hopefully in concert with somebody that has a decent disable. For example, the Wind Ranger in this game can shackle shot somebody. I can go ahead and proc a couple arc lightnings, a lightning bolt, and then with a power shot or something we can finish off that person. By yourself, unless you're really far ahead of the other team, you're not getting, and you have a ton of mana and you're being really efficient, sort of snowballing. It's hard to get solo kills until you get some farm or get lucky with people that are already weak or something along those lines. Now I've got my arcane boots. But yeah, that's one of the things to be tricky, to be careful with, you know, if you're roaming around and ganking is like, you know, you're not always necessarily guaranteed to get a kill, and sometimes that means you're just sort of in a lane sapping experience. But if you can help set up a kill, that's a different story. Alright, I tried to get a deny there and failed. And now I see there's a bit of a fight happening, so I'm like, well, alright, Slark's doing his thing. Maybe I should go help out, but there's a bunch of heroes, and it looks like our Spirit Breaker just charged in there. Straight YOLO, and I'm like, I'm taking a ton of tower damage. There's a haunt out. There's dead Crystal Maiden. I dropped my ult because I was trying to help them out, but as you can see, it did not. In fact, it just did, well, very little, to be honest. It is providing us vision, or was for a little bit, but it didn't really do much. If I had potentially been watching that fight instead of watching my creep wave, I might have been able to use the ultimate to get a kill or otherwise make a bigger impact. But it did drive them back. You know, they're not able to push. They're all returning to base to heal up, which means our other people are getting free farm right now, which is always good. Now, our other people in this instance are a Keeper of the Light and a Wind Ranger. We don't really have a good hard carry this team. We have a Slark, who's pretty solid. But we don't have, like, their late game carry potential, I think, is a little scarier between Storm Spirit, Juggernaut, and Spectre. You know, we have myself, who Zeus can fall off. If people start getting things like a Pipe of Insight or they get any kind of magic resistance, you know, you're going to be dealing less and less damage as the game goes on because your right-click damage is not what you're focusing on. You're focusing on trying to keep your mana pool up so you can burst your spells. So here is where I'm deciding what to build next. You saw me click on the Aghs Scepter. Well, the whole reason I did that was because I forgot you can just click on the Staff of Wizardry there, and I wanted to get a 4-staff recipe up to get up and ready. I usually like to go Staff of Wizardry first when you're building a 4-staff because it gives you more utility in general, bigger mana pool, more intelligence, which for Zeus means more damage, things like that, as opposed to getting the Ring of Regen or the, certainly not the recipe first. But here we go, back still in lane, still really low on mana. Out of bottle charges, not being super efficient. You definitely want to try and try and right click for last hits as much as you can. However, I'm still leading the Storm Spirit now by about 10, although he's got one more deny than me. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure what to do. I don't know where to go. Our team isn't going necessarily. At this point, it's like, yeah, this is sort of an agony of indecision, right? Like, there's a lot of things I could be doing, but I'm mostly just sort of sitting in lane and getting farm. That's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not really making things happen across the map. As you can see, we are 14 minutes into the game. There are no towers down. However, it looks like there's some stuff happening here, so I was like, well, maybe I can go in on that, but I have literally 0 mana. Well, I have 100 mana, so literally 100 mana. Now I have a bit more, but the Strong Spirit's going to jump in on this Keeper of the Light. I don't know if he's going to be able to get away. He's going to get Frostbit. Storm Spirit's going to try and run. Storm Spirit doesn't look like he has a whole lot of mana either. We're right-clicking him down, and boom. We go ahead and get a kill there. And then we have a charge. Oh man, this poor Spirit Breaker is just going to die, but we're going to clean up. He charged in and got Frostbit like as soon as he started charging, so she just froze him in place and started right-clicking him. But then there were 3 of us, so we killed the Crystal Maiden. Now, overall, a trade, basically a support and a core for a support and a core. Even trade. We're still leading by 2 kills. That's pretty solid. Slark is now coming mid with me, so maybe we can push this lane and get some towers down. I am pretty close to my Force Staff, and I'm like, I should probably buy a TP scroll or something, so I can maybe show up the fights and otherwise be useful. But we're going to get some right-click damage on this tower, slowly but surely, winging it down, and here comes Storm Spirit again. Oh, he jumps in. He's like, I'm going to initiate. Slark's like, ulti, run away! And I'm backing off as well because I'm like, I have no mana. I do have 6 charges on my wand, however, which is pretty nice. We can see the Slark going for the Juggernaut, and I'm like, well, there's a Juggernaut. Well, alright, I'm already running down this way. Maybe I'll see if there's a rune. I guess I'm just going to run back up here. So, again, maybe I could have grabbed that rune spot. Maybe I could have gone ahead and ran with the Slark down to bottom lane. Might have been better, because then I could have potentially helped them gank. Not that they needed it. We could have killed the Spectre again, and then had 5 of us down there pushing this tower, or 4 of us down there pushing the tower, as opposed to 3. Would have made it more likely we could get the tower easier. Instead, I'm back mid, still harassing mid. Now, the good thing about doing this is I am re-equalizing the creeps. So they've been pushing the creeps in a little bit, and I'm gonna get jumped on here. There's a snare. Crystal Maiden's gonna frostbite me. They're gonna right-click me down. I go ahead and drop some damage, but it's not gonna be enough. There's too many right clicks. They can jump on me, but I was able to get the Crystal Maiden pretty low. There's a power shot that was a little bit off. I mean, it was a good idea, but there was a nice juke by the CM. And then here's an ulti from the Spirit Breaker, ton of damage. Here they're trying to kill the Spirit Breaker. Storm Spirit's attacking. And boom. Wind Ranger dies. I'm pretty sure they're going to kill the Spirit Breaker because they haunt. I think they're either haunted or the Spectre comes in and yeah. Runs around her freaky, creepy black stuff. And, good lord, the Slark died to the Crystal Maiden. And Ogre's pushing on our towers. So that was a bad engagement, friends. They tied up the kills. They have 4 of us down. Keeper of the Light has a double damage rune, but was by himself and is not going to survive this. There is too much damage. Oh, man. Look at that go. I TP back down. I start dropping my Arc Lightnings. I drop that. I get a nice kill. Oh, he almost had the Crystal Maiden. If I'd had my Force Staff, I could have Force Staffed in and probably gotten her with another Arc Lightning. But that was a decent kill on the Juggernaut. And that's the thing, like, as you can see, if you start getting your spells off, and you generally want to start with Arc Lightning if you can, so that your Lightning Bolt ends up, it doesn't deal more damage, but they're already weaker, and then you can kind of burst them down, and then drop another Arc Lightning. All these spells in succession basically soften them up, so that your static field is proccing more often, just losing health constantly. And that's how you basically wreck face as a Zeus. I see a CM. I was a little bit too far away. She's a little bit faster than me. Does she have a Yule Scepter?
Radiant's mid tower could use
Oh, she's coming back. She's coming back. She's like, I'm going to chase him. I'm going to chase me. She doesn't. She, in fact, has a Claymore. Huh. All right. Crystal Maiden has a Claymore. I'm actually kind of flabbergasted. I don't quite understand why, but maybe it's legit and I don't know it. Who's to say? I'm still sitting mid. Guys, as a Zeus, you could probably be doing more in general. But you'll see me make some plays, I think. And now our whole team's converging up there. And I'm like, well, I could last hit a little bit or I could go to the fight. You should be going to the fight. Like, you see your whole team converging like that, go to the fight. Now, we have pushed this wave in. There's a bunch of people charging around. They're coming mid with this fight. It looks like we're getting the upper hand. We just killed Juggernaut. Tower was destroyed by us because I was able to push the lane in. So at least we got that. Crystal Maiden's going to die because there's a bunch of them there. And their Spectre's still not super scary. So by me pushing now, I should have shown up to the fight because we might have been able to kill more of them. And there's still fights happening. Like, I shouldn't be clearing this wave. I should be moving forward because now the Ogre gets some damage off. Here's Storm Spirit doing his thing. There's a Haunt coming out. They're going to kill the Spirit Breaker. And we should back off. I finally have my Force Staff. We're looking the game. Slark is making things happen, getting kills. Pretty close to dying himself. There's a mech from our Keeper of the Light, so things are looking okay. We've killed 4 of them, only lost 1 of us. We're leading by 5 kills, and the lane is kind of pushed in. So pushing in lanes is like, you could split pushing is not necessarily a bad decision, right? Like, split pushing can be effective as long as you're getting towers out of it, and we did get a mid tower out of it. But you know, as a Zeus, like, your push potential is not bad because you can spam Arc Lightning like crazy and just get a lot of creep damage so that your creeps are just kind of tanking them down, and they're the waves push in. But it can also be good for you to show up to fights and start dishing out damage in fights that you are able to contribute in that way as well. Hero kills is generally really good. It slows them down, gives gold to you and experience to you and your team.
Guess what's happening to Dyer's bottom tower?
And everybody generally knows that. That's kind of, I think, understood. And here we go. Storm Spirit jumps in, doesn't grab anybody. There's Ogre on the Keeper of the Light. That was a good idea. He mechs. Oh, and here comes Juggernaut. Bunch of damage, but I go ahead and drop my ulti at that point. I get another Arc Lightning, and then the Slark's going to come in and clean up. And this is the nice thing about, Zeus. As you see, I basically emptied my mana pool, but there was so much damage dealt to all their heroes by all my different abilities that it made it really easy for our other heroes to clean up. Something to think about when you're playing Zeus. I think one of the reasons he's listed as a support is your instinct is to try to nuke people down and get kills. And you certainly can do that. But something to bear in mind, especially in team fights, if you're nearby and you're proccing static field a bunch, that makes it really easy for your carry or your other cores to clean up. So it can be really good, even if you don't get kills, just dropping some nuke damage on a few different heroes, especially key heroes like a Dazzle, for example, or the Storm Spirit. Well, maybe not the Storm Spirit, or the Ogre. Somebody that has disables and is really easy to take out. You get those guys out early, and suddenly, the rest of your team is able to clean up that much easier because everybody around them has been taking a bunch of damage. Even if they're not getting hit by the Arc Lightning, the static field has a pretty solid AoE. It's 1,000 range. Like, anything within that circle's radius of you is taking percents of their, at this point, 11% of their health in damage as, or it's health reduction every time you cast a spell. So that's pretty ridiculous. So now I was decided to experiment. I'm going for a Rod of Athos. Rod of Athos is a pretty cool item, and one of the things it does is I will show you. Oh, let's take a look. You can see here I am. You're gonna follow me. The Rod of Athos. Let's see here. Rod of Athos. It is 25 intelligence plus 350 health. And its active ability slows someone by 60% for 4 seconds in an enormous range. Why is this good? Well, as I've demonstrated already, at least I'd like to think I have, Zeus has a mana pool, a kind of limited mana pool, and he's not super tanky. By going Rod of Athos, you're giving him 25 intelligence, which increases his right-click damage, increases his mana pool by quite a bit. It gives him a really nice slow, which allows him to proc Arc Lightning and Lightning Bolt more reliably. At this point, I kind of ran in a silly pattern. I really should have ran up through the woods the other direction because I'm going to take some tower hits here that were totally unnecessary, but we can see that there's a fight happening, so we're on the way up. But yeah, here we go. I dropped my ulti. The reason I dropped the ulti at that point was just to soften them up. I'm standing there for doing nothing for some reason. There's another Arc Lightning, and I think with a nice power shot, she should be able to finish off the Ogre. I also Force Staffed up just to see if I could try to finish him off if she wasn't able to. Overall, that fight went great for us. And you can see we're just going to push this lane down and take another tower. So with the Rod of Athos, you're getting some health, which is nice, gives you a little bit more survivability. You're getting a bunch of intelligence, which helps your mana pool and gives you some more right-click damage. And that slow is really nice in team fight. It might have been better to go for an Aghanim Scepter at this point, so that my ulti was more effective. But I don't think this is a bad build. It's also cheap. The Rod of Atos is cheaper by about 1,000 gold than the Aghanim Scepter is, and that's not to be sneezed at either.
Top tower's hurting.
So if you want to get something online, and if you need an extra slow or something on your team where you don't have a lot of disables, and out here I'm pushing out mid, but our whole team is down there fighting. Now what I should have done in this instance, this is not necessarily bad because our team is doing pretty well. But it would have been smarter, I think, overall for me, instead of run down to mid, would have been to turn around after I bought my item in a secret shop, run back to where they were on the top lane here, and contributed into the fight. I have managed to push this lane back pretty good, and now they've brought the fight to me, so I'm going to move up and try to help out. Our Slark is beyond godlike, so he's doing pretty good. Our courier is super vulnerable, oh my god, and then there's a charge back, I get the lightning, yeah, there we go. That's the combo, man. If you can get Arc Lightning, Lightning Bolt, another Arc Lightning, and then Thunder God's Wrath, you will kill a lot of dudes. It's a ton of damage, especially if they're close enough to be within range for your static field to proc, which generally they will be, because I think the range on these is about the same as, yeah. In fact, static field's even longer range than what you need to have Arc Lightning or Lightning Bolt cast. Now, they are going to get our bottom tower. These things happen, but we are sieging both their mid and their top at the same time, and their whole team is dead. This is going pretty well for the dire side, guys. We had a minor early lead that just snowballed into a pretty solid lead, I think. If we take a look at the XP graph, we are 20,000 plus experience ahead, and about the same amount of gold. So it's not impossible for their team to come back. Like I said, their late game, I think, is better overall than ours. And if we start doing silly things, like if they're able to get picks on key heroes and start taking towers to equalize the gold and get some map control back so they can give their Spectre some farm, they could potentially win it. But we would have to be playing a little sloppy for that to happen, and they'd have to be playing like out of their minds. You get to a certain point where you're far enough behind that you almost have to count on the enemy screwing up or not pushing appropriately so that you can get enough farm to catch up and take it to that late game and become really scary. But it's doable. It's one of those things where it's like, it's sometimes very tempting to give up, and I'm definitely guilty of that. You know, I have my abandons on my account, not gonna lie. All right, here we go. She comes in, I get the Arc Lightning, she decides to go ham, and then there's another Lightning Bolt, and she's just gone. A couple right clicks, and then what did this Crystal Maiden go? Shadow Blade. Shadow Blade Tranquil Crystal Maiden, guys. It's legit. Alrighty, so Keeper of the Light and I are actually pretty good at pushing the lane in. If we had wards more aggressively placed or really anywhere, we would have seen this Juggernaut coming in. This is the utility of Force Staff right there. I'm stuck in the spin, and I'm like, well, I can Force Staff myself out. Now I'm out of the spin. He's not going to catch up to me with it. And we're kind of like, well, should we game? Should we back off? I don't know how buff we are. We've got mana. I'm like, well, I'll go ahead and proc some Arc Lightning. I'll go ahead and deal, and then that's the Rod of Atos slow. It's a huge slow. But the Storm Spirit's going to deal some damage. Oh man, I'm going to go ahead. Oh, he's immune to magic when he does that. In case you did not know, I think you can watch my Juggernaut video to find out more about that. Oh man, there's the Arc Lightning. I don't know why he was just standing there, but that's a dead Storm Spirit. He's taking a ton of damage. This guy really wants to kill this Keeper of the Light. Oh my god, he's like, I want it so bad. And I'm like, oh, if I just had vision, I could have killed you. But I didn't have vision. And my Thunder God's Wrath was on cooldown. But here's a Spectre who dies to a power shot. So their team's kind of falling apart a little bit, and we're playing pretty well. The Keeper of the Light survived. He's running back to base to heal, which is smart so that he doesn't die. He doesn't have a ton of regen, I don't think, although he has decent regen with the mechanism, as well as being able to proc it for just a straight heal. I'm going to go ahead and deny that, which is kind of unnecessary at this point. As you can see, I'm still one of the leaders in last hits, which is pretty good. KDA, our Slark has 16 kills, guys. And I'm 6-1 and 12. So I have been helping with a number of those kills, as has our Wind Ranger. I mean, she's 6-1 and 11. I mean, our Wind Ranger was making things happen. Crystal Maiden has 6 of the kills on their team. So I guess that Shadow Blade build is maybe a little more legit than I expected. Hard to say, but here we go. They're trying to game, just dropping some Arc Lightnings, getting a bunch of gold from Arc Lightnings. In comes the Slark. He knocks down the Crystal Maiden. We get True Vision with that, which might be enough. Oh, look at this. Power shots. Sieging up the base. Bunch of damage. Forcing them back to well. We're going to take the T3 bottom. and probably Rax as well, if I remember correctly. So that's Zeus. I think the Rod of Atos is a pretty solid build. I definitely wasn't using it as efficient. It's an item I haven't really played around with much, so I wasn't used to having it, or I should have been using it more often. I'm standing there for some reason because I don't know why. Don't just stand around, guys. I think I've turned off my auto attack recently, and I think it's actually been throwing me off because I'm used to like, oh, my hero should just be attacking if I'm not clicking on anything, and right now he doesn't. So
didn't make it.
Things to keep in mind. All right.
It's done.
I got a charge. Can't see her. We don't have any detection. Here comes the charge. Oh my god, I got caught and just blown up by the Juggernaut and everything. I was totally out of position there. And at this point, the game is over. Like, you'll see me buy... I'm going to buy an Aghanim Scepter, basically, and then run back to lane. And by the time I get back to lane, the game is going to be over. Like, I'm still dead. I could have probably just bought back, which might have been smart, and then made some things happen with Thunder God's Wrath, dealt some damage, but it really wasn't necessary. I'm back. Oh my god, so many things are happening so fast. Oh my god, hold on! Slow it down. It's okay. They got a kill on the Spirit Breaker. Once again, we're still up by 36 to 17. Ogre's going to go ahead and kill the Wind Ranger, I think, but it's going to be a dead Juggernaut. Boom! Almost. Slark killed the Juggernaut. See? Managed to get some damage on him. Slark was able to jump in and finish him off. Nicely done. Wind Ranger does die to the Ogre's damage over time, but we have all their T3s down. We're going to go ahead and get Rax. This is a bit risky because we don't have... Our guys are split pushing, but Slark is pretty scary right now. So they're scared. They're going to run away. And we're just going to come back and keep hitting on Rax. The Spirit Breaker uses charge to get in. One of the cool things I see Spirit Breakers do is use charge basically just to get across the map faster. Then you cancel it because you don't actually want to charge in on somebody. We're going to dive in. We slow the Crystal Maiden. And she managed to go invisible because she's got the Shadow Blade. Totally didn't notice that happening. Alright, we blow up the Spectre. Our Slark's taking a bunch of damage, but it's alright. They kill the Slark. Good lord. But their barracks is down. We're going to go ahead and get more Arc Lightnings, get a kill. Juggernaut's going to go ahead and get a kill with a nice Omni Slash there. I'm backing off. Here comes a slow on me. I think... Oh, yes. So, we're now going to watch Ogre, and I believe the Storm Spirit, chase me all the way across the map. It's going to keep running. I even forced staff away. And they're like, oh, we're going to keep going. We're going to game. We're gaming on this Zeus. This Zeus is not getting away, guys. They're like, this Zeus is not fucking escaping, guys. It's not going to happen. And I'm like, I'm going to keep running. I'm like, I mean, we're Raxing you. We Raxed all your Raxes. Ogre comes around. Boom, gets the slow. Boom's going to get the stun. And I'm a dead Zeus. So now is the point in the game where I'm dead for forever. And I'm basically, by the time I'm alive again, the game is going to be over. You can see a lot of cool things happening. I'm back alive. And, or no, not back alive yet. Coddle's back alive. Let's take a look at the Slark. He's running around making kills happen. We're up by 20 kills now. They've been finding some as we've been running around high ground, not as 5. Kind of gaming. But you can see he's pretty terrifying. Our Keeper of the Light's doing good. Really good. Let's see, our Spirit Breaker's got some decent stuff, Heaven's Halberd. I'm back, and I'm running towards mid. Now, by the time I get back, I'm pretty sure their throne is going to be taken. Slark goes in. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm watching the fight just so I can get a sense, since this is one of the things I talked about in the Lion video. It's good to watch fights. It's good to watch where your team is, especially if you're just sort of running down the lane. Like, alright, I need to run down the lane. I don't really have anything to keep an eye on. I call it the GG because it's pretty much over. We're going to go ahead and try and get some pushing in and take their towers and maybe go for another kill. Spirit Breaker runs away. I'm still coming, guys. I'm still chucking, still plugging away. Go, Zeus, go! And I think I'm in range of the throne when the game ends. Yup. And that's it. That's Zeus. Zeus is a fun hero. Like you said, if you stay kind of a little bit back, if you're smart about using your Arc Lightnings, you can deal a ton of damage to the entire enemy team and make it really easy for your carries to clean up. That's a great way to play him. Thunder God's Wrath can provide vision and knock people out. I've had games where you buy back in Thunder God's Wrath and get double or triple kills. That rarely happens, but if you see the opportunity, it is probably the most satisfying thing in Dota. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.